Sunflowers have long been a popular subject matter when drawing from observation. They're large, bright, bold, and filled with lots of different textures. The well-known Dutch Impressionist painter Vincent van Gogh had quite the affinity for painting these flowers, which resulted in a series of famous still life paintings. Today, we are going to use real sunflowers as our drawing subject and see if we can focus on some of the details that you can only get from being up close. Sunflowers can be many different shapes and colors. These ones were just picked recently here in Haines, and I have a couple examples that we're going to be looking at today, but what I really want you to look at is the texture inside the center of the sunflower, the shapes and texture of the petals, and also looking at the size of some of the leaves. Look at these leaves. These are giant, but some are smaller. So each sunflower is different, and your image, your picture that you're drawing, will be a little bit different than mine. This is the sunflower that I have chosen to draw today. If you do not have access to a sunflower, you can of course look up a picture, but if you do have some folks harvesting sunflowers in your area, try and get your hands on one so you can look up close and personal. We are going to start with the center of the sunflower, which is a circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle because nothing in nature is very perfect, which is nice, gives us a little creative license. And then we're going to start in with the petals. Now, each petal is slightly different on my sunflower, so I'm not going to draw every petal the same shape. But what I am looking at is that most of them are this kind of almond shape or football. And then as the flower starts to dry out, that shape changes and warps. So I'm going to go around my entire center of my sunflower with my petals, each one a little tiny bit different, some a little curlier than others. And then I'm going to go through and add a little bit of texture. You saw I just put in some lines to show those lines that come up from the center of the flower and out to the tip of the petal. The second step is that the sunflower is rarely just one circle of petals. Usually there's a couple layers. So to show that second layer, I'm just drawing a few tiny little tips of petals poking out from behind my first row. Now we're looking real close at that center texture. Now when I say texture, what I'm talking about is we're drawing how it feels. So you can, if you have one in front of you, you can feel the center of the sunflower. They're fairly soft, and they have kind of almost these little curlicues or little dots of pollen on the end of them. And so I'm going to use my knowledge of the sunflower and use dots, some circles, and even a few little squiggly kind of swirls to show that inside texture of my flower. I'm also noticing that the area of my petals that are a little bit closer to my sunflower are just a tiny bit darker, and I'm coloring in some of that area around the center of the flower to show that it sticks out a little bit. Now it's time to put in our stem. I'm looking at my stem and seeing how many leaves I have and where they come out of the stem. That's really important. The other thing to notice is that as the leaves come out of the stem, there is a little attachment, a really skinny attachment. And our leaves themselves are these kind of giant, the ones that I have at least, are these giant heart shapes. I call them squiggly hearts. So you're going to see me draw these really large kind of squiggly heart shapes. Here it is again. You can see that heart and those veins of the leaf coming down. That'll be important. We're going to look at that. And I'm also going to add in a few leaves that are coming from the back of the sunflower. You should look at your sunflower if you have one in front of you. Make sure to look at the back and see what that back looks like. Now it is time to color, and I am going to use some colored pencils, specifically 3 different colors for my flower petals. I'm looking at kind of a brighter yellow, an orangish, peachish color, and something that can create that kind of dark brownish maroon color in the center of my petal. To get this kind of effect of the color change in my petals, I'm going to color the tips and the very center of my petal with those yellow hues, and then come back through with that kind of purplish, brownish color and blend that in. And I'm going to go around through all of my petals and do the same. And I will pick a couple petals that I'm going to add that bright yellow to, because I don't know if you saw, but on the back of my petals it was even brighter. You can continue to color the rest of your sunflower, the stalk and the leaves, with any colors that you like. I chose a couple different greens, and then I also used my yellow to do those little circular decorations, that texture in the center of the flower, and then you'll see what I do next to create the black. If you have tempera cakes or tempera paint or even watercolor at home, you can paint on a little bit of color to add a little depth to your piece. So if you're needing more of a challenge for your art student, you can do a couple different things. First, you can use a sunflower and put it in a vase or a container that is opaque, so something that you cannot see through, and they can work on drawing the actual form of that vase, just like Vincent van Gogh. If you want to make it a little bit more challenging than that, you can put it into something that is transparent, like a jar, and look at all the shapes and light and lines that come out of this jar, and how do we make this look transparent in our image, which is something we're working on in 3rd grade right now. And that is a challenge. Even more of a challenge, jar with multiple sunflowers. So one of Vincent van Gogh's pieces had 14 sunflowers in it. You can play around with doing multiple. This gets into a lot more of perspective. So how do I show that this sunflower is behind another sunflower? So start first with one and then see where you can go from there.